Hola, buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas noches, whatever time of day it is you're watching this. Welcome to lesson 0.5, quick review of Spanish 1 as we get ready for Spanish 2 stuff. The theme in today's lesson is food. These are the chapters where we were discussing breakfast, lunch, dinner, el desayuno, el almuerzo, la cena y las comidas en general. Ahora vamos a hablar un poco de tres cosas hoy. Vamos a hablar de los verbos ER e IR, the ER and IR verbs. We're going to talk about conjugating those. We're also going to be talking about the verb ser, to be, and we're also going to be talking about one other thing. Oh, adjectives. We're going to be talking about adjectives as well. So let's go ahead and get rolling here. Let's start with ER verbs. ER verbs. Now we talked the other day about how verbs conjugate in Spanish. They change. In English, we don't even think about it if it was our first language. In Spanish, we've got this formula that we follow. It usually fits into a grid, or it usually follows the same pattern. And when we do this grid, we're talking about, I'll do this grid all the time, and I'll assume you guys know this. Yo, tú, and either él, ella, or usted, he, she, you. Nosotros. We'll skip the vosotros. Sorry, Spaniards. And ellos, ellas, ustedes. They, or y'all. Because once again, in Latin America, the Spanish that we're most exposed to in this region, instead of going to the vosotros, which is the y'all in Spain for friends, we just use ustedes for both informal and formal. We use ustedes in this region, and especially Latin America. Okay, so this is the table that we're talking about. I'm going to get these out of the way. Actually, I'll just erase this whole thing and start all over. I just wanted to go through those subject pronouns again real quick because sometimes I assume you already know the chart, and if you don't, then then what I'm showing you doesn't make much sense. So I wanted to remind you of those subject pronouns in that chart that we're using. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with an ER verb. Since we're talking about food and such this chapter, we'll start with the verb comer. Comer means to eat. Okay? So I'll do that little grid we were talking about. It's a lot like the AR verbs, o, as, a, amos, an, except we're just going to switch the endings. For example, if you want to say I eat, you say como. You could say yo como or simply como. So the O is your ending. Oh, rewind. As a review, when we conjugate verbs, we drop the AR, ER, or IR ending, and then we add our new ending according to the subject pronoun. So yo como, tú, you eat, com, and es is our ending. Tú comes. He, she, or usted eats, come. Come. The letter E is our ending. We eat. Nosotros comemos. Hemos is our ending. And they eat, or you guys eat. Ustedes, ellos, ellas, comen. Okay? So just like with the AR verbs, we had o, as, a, amos, an. With ER verbs, we have o, es, e, hemos, en. Let's put it in context here. Por la mañana me gusta comer huevos. Los huevos son deliciosos. Los huevos con un poco de queso, sal y pimienta. Como los huevos, yo digo 2 o 3 veces por semana. También a veces como cereales o como yogur. Muy pocas veces, casi nunca, no como nada. Yo creo que es importante comer por la mañana, por lo menos comer un poco, comer una manzana. Yo como manzanas, me gustan las manzanas. Okay, that's comer. ¿Qué comen ustedes? Mis hijas comen cereales. A ellas Les gustan los cereales. Okay, that's comer. ER verbs. O-S-E, hemos, en. Now let's hit an IR verb, because they're similar. I explain it this way. ER and IR are kind of like cousins or buddies. They hang out together. A lot of their stuff is very similar. AR is more the independent verb. It does its own thing. So ERs and IRs are similar. We're going to do them together. Let's see, an IR verb from this chapter. Can't think of one off the top of my head. I'll just use the verb vivir, to live. To live. It's an IR verb, again a cousin of the ER verbs. We'll do the same chart. If you want to say I live, yo vivo. You live, tú vives. He, she, or usted lives, vive. So far you're saying, hey, this is just like ER verbs. Hey, you're right. We live. This is where it changes. This is where vivir, or IR verbs, they just want their alone time. Because when you get around a whole bunch of people like nosotros, when you get around us, you just kind of want to be alone and do your own thing. So the IR does its own thing here. Instead of comemos, hemos, we go to imos, vivimos. Nosotros vivimos en una casa. We live in una casa. Vivís, viven, they live. Okay? So once again, looking at these, you can see why we do ERs and IRs together. It's because they have almost the same endings. Instead of os, e, hemos, en, in the IR verbs we have os, e, imos, en for our endings. Okay, let me do a few of these real quick. Conjugations, put it in context for you. Mi amigo vive en una casa. Él vive en una casa. Él vive con su esposa y un hijo. Ellos comen el desayuno por la mañana. Comen el desayuno por la mañana. Ellos comen un huevo con pan tostado. No soy artista, perdón. Pan tostado. It doesn't even look like what I'm talking about. Ellos viven en una casa, comen un huevo con pan tostado y beben, they drink, beben jugo de naranja, pero al hijo no le gusta el jugo de naranja. Él toma o bebe leche. Él prefiere la leche. Y no come mucho desayuno él, pero cuando... No, we'll just leave it there. Okay, so there's a quick example of some of those verbs in use. A bad example perhaps, but hey, it's early in the morning and my creative juices aren't quite flowing yet. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Let's hit the verb ser. Ser. Ser es muy importante, muy importante. We talked the other day about the verb estar being in a state or condition, like I am here, the book is there, el libro está en la mesa, yo estoy en la sala de clases. Using that for I am, you are, he is, but when it's a state, a condition, a location, that's estar. This one, ser, this is more part of who you are, what the being is like. Looks like my battery's dying. Perdón, my battery was dying, had to swap out the battery there. So, okay, ser, like I was saying, is part of your being, part of who you are, what you are. Ser. Remember, estar was estoy, estás, está. Well, this one of to be is also irregular. Here, let me do that grid that we were just talking about. If you want to say I am, like I am a teacher, I am tall. We did it in our first chapter. I am sports-minded, I am all that stuff. We already know that one. Soy. Soy alto, soy bajo. You are. Tú eres. He, she, usted. Es, is. Now when we're talking about the food, es delicioso. Es mucha comida. Es mi desayuno. It is. So remember, nouns in Spanish have gender. So when we're talking about something like breakfast, that's a he. El desayuno, breakfast, it's a he. So it gets categorized down here in the L usted S. We are, somos. Somos, we are. Somos pacientes, pero queremos la comida ahora. Tenemos hambre. Tenemos mucha hambre. Somos, and they are, son. Son. Ellos son mis estudiantes. Estas son las conjugaciones de ser. Este es el verbo ser. Nosotros somos estudiantes del español. Yo soy el profesor. Yo también soy estudiante. ¿Tú eres estudiante o tú eres profesor? La comida es deliciosa. I already used that example. That's a bad one. La comida es mi comida. Somos son. So those are ser. You should know those. Again, this is just a refresher, so I shouldn't spend any more time on this. Sorry if I ramble on too long. Last thing I want to mention is adjectives. We've mentioned this before, that adjectives need to agree in gender and number with the noun they modify. That sounds like grammar talk. Let me make it quick, or let me put it into normal words. Let's say, talking about food. El sándwich. El sándwich es delicioso. Okay, delicioso is our adjective because it is describing our noun. So this is our adjective. Adjectives need to agree in gender and number with the noun that they modify. Again, grammar speak, I'm sorry. So delicioso is our adjective. We're describing sandwich. Sandwich is masculine. It starts with el. It's masculine. So this is ending in o, delicioso. Now if I were to change this to la carne. Let's say la carne, the meat. La carne es muy rica. Okay, now a little side note. In English, when we say something is rich, you're thinking cheesecake, things like that. In Spanish, rico and rica, it just means that it's delicious. Okay, so la carne es muy rico or rica. Well, it's la carne, so it's going to be rica. La carne es muy rica. If this were plural, something like, los libros, oh, that looks like a bad letter. Los libros son interesante. Los libros son interesante. No, los es plural, son es plural, this es plural. Los libros son interesantes. Now, I think that's about all the review we need to do with that. I should mention though that there are a few adjectives like interesante where it doesn't switch between masculine and feminine. So if I were to say, las chicas son interesantes. Okay, even if it's feminine, it's still interesantes. Let's see, what else can I mention about adjectives? Oh, if an adjective ends with a consonant. Okay, azul. El libro es azul. Now, I wouldn't say azules. No. No. If it ends in a consonant, I have to add es at the end, not just the s like we normally do if it ends in a vowel. So I'll mention that. Anything else to mention here? Okay, I think we're good. All right, guys, that's it. That's the verb ser, quick review of adjectives, and the er and ir conjugations. Okay.